Hey, Lazy Labbers, Mark G here with another podcast. On today's show, we have Miss Lacy. Welcome to the show, Lacy. How you doing?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for having me.
We are glad to have you. So, if you could just quickly tell the viewers today a little bit about yourself and how are you, connected with Lazy Lab.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the Matt is my brother-in-law. I've known him for quite a while, and he asked me to start to get involved with this part of the podcast because I'm actually working as a veterinary technician. I've been in the vet tech field since 2008, and I do a lot of continuing education in things like animal nutrition and animal behavior, and have had a lot of personal experience in those areas. So it's an interesting crossover with hunting and animal health.
Okay, cool. So, we're going to get right into it, talk about a little bit animal health. So, can you tell us, like the importance of crude protein and dry kibble? Why is there such a variation among brand names, and what should we as consumers be cautious of, when we're feeding our fur babies?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when it comes to protein, it's there's several things that are really important because on the market right now, there's so many different facts going around that can be scary because they're not founded and can sometimes be dangerous. And so you do want to really make sure that when you're looking into a food that you look into something that's been researched and has been proven in the field. And a lot of the fat and the boutique diets going around are kind of causing this wave of things like the grain-free wave that went around that the FDA had to actually step in and take a stand against, and raw diets, things like that. And it's one of the things in the veterinary industry that we're trying to really take a stand against and educate clients against. So it depends on when you talk about protein. It really depends on the level of activity of your dog. So the protein
Okay.
requirements of a dog out hunting all day in the field, or like say a canine police officer, or a military dog, are going to be way different than the pug that sleeps on the couch all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they're not going to require the same nutrition, just like in people. I mean, different people require different nutrition, and so the something like a 30% protein diet for the pug that lays in the couch all day could potentially be harmful in
Mm.
that it would probably cause weight gain, that it would probably be really hard on the kidneys.
Okay.
But for a dog that's out there, working all day, it probably would need something like 30% protein. So it really depends on the activity level. That's one of the main factors when you're talking about protein is how often and how long is your dog going to be out there working. One of the main things protein is used for is muscle, and so
Mhm.
it's lean energy. And so when you're looking for a diet for your dog, if your dog is more like the pug that lays on the couch all day, what happens when you get too much protein is the kidneys are the only job the kidneys have when it comes to nutrition and diet is to change protein into urea and get it out of the system. And so
Mm.
protein doesn't store in the body if you don't make it into muscle. And so it's not like fat and carbohydrates. The body's really good about saying, hey, we had too much of that today, so we're just going to store it here for later and we'll use it when we need it. Protein's a little bit different. And so when your body takes in too much of that protein, your kidneys have to kind of go into overdrive and change that into urine and get it out of your system if you don't change that into muscle. So that pug that's laying on the couch all day, if you give it a really high, triple the amount of protein diet, basically all you're doing is just working the kidneys 3 times harder than you need to. But for
Got it.
the dog that's out there hunting all day or working all day, that's going to be changed into lean muscle and it's going to be used. And so that's kind of why it's really important to know where your dog is on the activity scale. Um, the other thing about protein out there that's really common with these diets, there's the grain free. I'm sure you've heard about that went around.
Yes.
And the big deal with that was that when you take grains out of the diet, it all originated from uh, actually a human disease, celiac disease in humans.
Mhm.
It kind of, I don't want to say popular because that's the wrong term to use for a disease, but I
But it
guess
is
there
pretty
was an
popular.
yeah, there was like an outbreak of celiac disease in humans, and nutrition became a big main talking point, and a lot of humans were moving over to these grain-free diets. And one of our biggest mistakes as animal lovers is anthropomorphizing our animals. And so that kind of migrated over into the animal side of nutrition, but it bypassed the science ward, if you know what I mean. And it didn't get researched at all. And so they took the problem with that is that that condition isn't in animals. And so they have completely different anatomies. And so when you take the grains out of a dog's diet, because they are omnivores, you have to replace it with something. And what they did is they replaced it with lentils or beans and
Okay.
that category. And that's actually causing dilated cardiomyopathy in dogs, and it's been proven. And so it's actually um, causing so much of an issue that the FDA had to step in and issue a warning saying that they're doing some more research on it. But it's been these grain-free diets have been linked to heart disease in dogs.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah, that's another reason why you got to be really careful about fad diets, and the latest and
Yeah.
greatest. And, I walk into Mud Bay and I see these wolf, packages and all these trees and the bobcat on the front of the packages. And it's the wolf is very different from the pug that's laying on your couch all
Of
day, and the
course.
nutrition
Of course.
requirements are very different as well. And back to your protein question, one of the big things that came out of the uh, the whole fad diet thing was this high protein. Everybody was looking for bags that had more meat. We want fresh. Let's do raw if we have to, because a wolf, they eat raw meat, so my dog should be as close to the wolf diet as possible. And I don't think my dog should have to have vegetables, because wolves don't eat vegetables. And so the problem with that is that it's not based in science. And so the carbohydrates and the grains that wolves get in their diets when they do eat meat is in the stomachs of the animals that they kill. And so
Got
it's
it.
already pre-digested grains that they get in their diet. But that is a big part, and that is a big staple in their diet. And so when you do these higher, protein diets, because of this whole idea revolving around going back into nature and back into the wolf for our animals, it's just it doesn't translate when you're talking about that pug laying on the couch.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, segueing into our next topic, because you were talking about the sedentary dog versus our hunting and working dog.
Mhm.
So, in relation to the hunting dogs, when it comes to vitamins and supplements, what should we as hunters be feeding our working dogs, our working animals? Is that going to be dependent on its breed, how old they are, and of course the activity that plays into it as well, like we were just speaking on?
Yeah, I think when it comes to, I mean, a lot of people right now are really good about, getting long chain fatty acids in there. That's good for the heart. It lubricates the joints, really good for their coat and their skin. I think the biggest thing that is misunderstood or misinterpreted when it comes to supplements is joint supplements.
Okay.
I think that the way they work is kind of misunderstood. And so a lot of people will start to use them when they see their dog having problems or when their dog gets older. And the way that a joint supplement actually works is that it goes and it preserves the joint tissue or the joint capsule that's left. And so it protects that from breaking down further. And so when you start that, when there's already a problem or later in their life, sure, it'll help and it'll make a difference, because it'll also lubricate in there. But it actually is a lot more useful when you start those in a healthy animal or a young
Okay.
animal. And so you take a young joint and you put them on joint supplements and you preserve that young joint, then you're actually going to do yourself a huge favor in the long run, because you're taking that young joint and giving it a longer life.
Okay, so in your experience, probably the earlier the better, as far
Yeah,
as
it
joint
is
health for these hunting animals. Speaking
definitely.
of animals, I didn't. My apologies. I didn't see we had a guest back there behind you.
Oh
Who is
yeah,
that?
Mister decided to make a guest appearance.
Nice,
My chocolate
nice.
Labrador.
Chocolate Lab, how's it going? Alrighty. So, last question for you
Yeah.
is going to be in regards to our canines' oral hygiene. How much emphasis should we put on, brushing their teeth? How often should we do it? And, in your professional experience, what's your take on it?
That's a great question, Mark. And I'm actually so glad you asked that question, because a lot of people don't think about that in their animals' health. And a couple pointers on this one, because I see one big mistake that a lot of hunters make, and I want to definitely get the word out there when it comes to this. So animals have the same teeth that we do. It's, the same bone, and our dentists tell us to brush our teeth twice a day. And you can imagine if you went your whole life without brushing your teeth, it'd get pretty bad pretty quickly.
Of
And
course.
so taking care of an animal's teeth or your dog's teeth is really, really important. The other thing, before we get into like a really good dental hygiene regimen, I kind of want to put a hunter disclaimer out there. So one of the really popular things to do for your dog is I see to give them like the antlers or bones and actual like real bones. I think they call them like butcher bones from a deer or whatever your game was. And the problem with this is that when it comes to bones or even antlers, you're getting bone on bone when they're chewing on that bone. And so this is where you see slab fractures. When I do dental cleanings on hunting dogs, I see this a lot. You see slab fractures, you see eruptions, you see abscesses, a lot of damage and pulp exposure and things like that, root exposure to the teeth when you get this bone on bone. And when it comes to antlers, that's actually harder than the teeth, the bone of the teeth. And so even more damage will happen when they start chewing on these antlers. And so the biggest disclaimer I can put out there for the hunting community is don't let your dogs chew on bones. Don't let your dogs chew on antlers. Rawhide gets a really bad rap, and you can actually make your own homemade rawhide. It doesn't have to be beef. Pork is actually, this is the only time you will ever hear a veterinary professional say your animal can have something from a pig, because no ham, no pork, but pig hide is actually fine.
Pig hide. Okay.
But
so that'll be a better alternative, correct?
A much better alternative.
Okay, instead of the bone.
The problem, rawhide gets a bad rap because of its potential for choking hazard. And it is true, when they get to that last bit, some dogs get too excited and they'll swallow the whole thing. Yeah. And the thing is that anything that your dog's chewing on should be supervised. And so if it gets down to that last bit and your dog's one of those dogs that, isn't patient with that last bit, you just take it away. But for the health wise, it's way better for the teeth, and it actually does have some nutritional value as well. Bones, they don't really have as much of a nutritional value. They can't digest them. Best case scenario, if they're able to get it down, it can cause laceration of the intestines. And if they are getting it down safely, they can't digest it, and it can upset the pancreas, cause pancreatitis, cause things like hemorrhagic gastroenteritis where they have to be hospitalized. And so it's just kind of bad news all around. But on the other note, for my little soapbox aside, for dental hygiene, taking care of the teeth is really easy. And obviously the best case scenario would be if you could brush your dog's teeth, but in all honesty, not every dog's going to accept you sitting down and brushing their teeth, And so the best thing I can recommend is that when you create a dental regimen for your dog, you should do something once a day. And you need to have two things involved in your regimen. The first thing is a mechanical aspect. And so the white stuff that's soft that builds up on the tooth is called plaque. And that's when we brush our teeth, what we're getting off of our tooth. And when you let plaque sit there, it actually turns into this rock hard substance called tartar or calculus. And you can't brush that off. You can't pick it off. You have to have a sonic scaler to get that off. And so once that settles into calculus, you have to go into dentistry to get that off. And so the whole point of brushing the teeth is to keep that plaque off so that you don't have dental calculus or tartar build up. And if you include a mechanical aspect into your dental regimen once a day for your dog, that's going to keep the rotation, keep that plaque off the teeth. Something like, and when I say mechanical, I mean when you brush, it's the physical action of brushing the teeth. If you can't brush their teeth, I'm always going to say brushing the teeth is the best, but if you can't brush their teeth, there's all kinds of dental chews, dental bones that have all those little pointies and the spikes and little nubs. And that's to create that physical agitation in the mouth to create that mechanical action. So when you're creating a dental regimen, whatever it is, if it's not brushing the teeth, you need to have some sort of mechanical action in there.
Do you recommend those dental treats? Treats daily?
Yeah. So once a day, some sort of dental regimen. I mean, if you can do it twice a day, that's great. Cause technically it should be after every meal, cause that's when the plaque builds up, but once a day is, acceptable for dogs. It's better than not doing anything for them. The other aspect that often gets missed, that's really, really important, is an enzymatic action. So you have your mechanical action and then you have your enzymatic action. So when you're using a toothpaste for a dog, you don't ever want to use human toothpaste, not even kid toothpaste. It says on the toothpaste not to swallow. And
Mhm.
so they actually make canine toothpaste. And my favorite company, I've done a lot of research into this personally for my dog, because she plays with tennis balls, so she gets really bad teeth. So I want to, keep her mouth as healthy as I
Of
can.
course.
And a company called Verbac makes a line of products called CET, and what it stands for is chlorhexidine enzymatic toothpaste. And so basically, these products all have an enzyme in there, and this enzyme destroys the bacteria that causes plaque and tartar for 24 hours. And so whenever that this is the thing that's missing from a lot of dental products. And so the reason why I wouldn't recommend that you go buy a greenie, or there's a lot of brands that have their own version of a greenie or like a dental chew out there, is because it has good mechanical action because it's shaped in like a toothbrush, or it has the nubbies and all that physical agitation, but then it'll just have mint in it or something. It doesn't have that enzymatic or that chemical aspect to it. So there's nothing in there to actually kill the bacteria. And so what uh, what you can do if you can't brush your dog's teeth, let's say, is you can go get a Nylabone that's got all the bumps and the knobs on it, and take Verbac's chlorhexid CET toothpaste, and you can actually put that on the bone, because they have them in chicken flavor, liver flavor, beef flavor. You can find something that your dog will love, and they
Okay.
can swallow it. And then you put that all over the bone and let your good dog take it and go brush his own teeth, basically.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's a
If
pretty
that
cool
doesn't work,
alternative.
yeah. So brushing the teeth is always going to be the best. I'm always going to recommend that first. But if for some reason that doesn't work, you can take your mechanical action, get your toothpaste, and put those two together. They even Verbac has something called a water additive. If you can't even do that, if your dog's not food motivated and you can't find a flavor that they like, you can add this water additive to their water. Now you have to do it every day, which means you have to offer fresh water, which we should be doing anyway. So you can't have one of those, forever bowls that continuously feeds the water. So you do a fresh bowl of water every day, put a little bit in there, and it actually puts that in. It's kind of like mouthwash, basically.
Okay.
And so it'll kill that bacteria. But yeah, so those are kind of like my three tiers from best to least for dental hygiene when it comes to your dog.
Outstanding. Of course, all great tips, and of course they are valued here since majority of our viewers are canine owners. So we really appreciate that, and we really appreciate you coming onto the show today and sharing all your insights. Obviously, you've been in the industry for quite some time, so your opinions are definitely valued here.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, lazy labbers. Until next time, we will see you out there. Take care, everybody.